Hello, and we are going to be looking today at something called Spinal CoGS. Spinal CoGS is something I learnt from my training with Gary Ward at Anatomy in Motion. Essentially, it is the conversation between the pelvis, thorax, and head. And this conversation should happen every time we take a step with walking. It's something I assess regularly in clinic and give as homework in clinic as well. So if we think about cog wheels, we think about 3 wheels here. We have wheel 1 would move in a clockwise direction. And because of the way the teeth pick up the wheel above goes anti-clockwise or counterclockwise. The 3rd wheel on top of that will go clockwise again. So we have a wheel going clockwise, a middle one anti-clockwise, and a lower one clockwise. Within the body, these wheels are hip and pelvis, the 2nd wheel is the thorax, and the 3rd wheel is the head. And these cog movements happen in 3 planes of motion, because life is in 3 planes of motion. So we have a sagittal plane cog, a side-to-side one in frontal plane, and then a rotational one in transverse plane. So I'm going to show you first of all a sagittal plane cog, so that's forwards and back, and I'm going to do it against the wall. So this is a wall cog. So your feet can be slightly further forwards, but you want to start making sure you can feel middle or center. So that's the middle of your pelvis, the middle of your ribs, and the middle of your head. Now, if your head is slightly forward placed, then you want to put something behind it. I really like to use a sort of semi-inflated little stability ball or Pilates ball, which you can then have some movement here. So in this position, we're going to start with leading with the skull. So this is going to be, in this conversation, wheel 1. So the skull is going to slide up the wall. And as you can see then, my head rotates forwards in a circular pattern. The center of this movement is actually through my ear, or the tragus part of my ear. So the head slides up the wall, the head rotates forwards in a circular pattern. What I want to then see or feel is this corresponding backwards rotation of my rib cage wheel or my thorax wheel. So again, sliding up, and then the rib cage will lift. So this area here closes and this area here opens. And you should really feel all your neck joints opening and lengthening. As we continue, we then want to see the pelvis wheel tilt forwards. So the pelvis wheel here rotates that way, the same as the head, and the ribs rotate back in this direction. And then we come back to center. Positional wise, as I slide my head up, my pressure is now at the low part of the head. My pelvis, it's now at the low part of the pelvis, but in the rib cage, the connection is in the upper part of the rib cage. You always need to keep 3 points of contact on your wall. So we can't go lift and come away from the wall, or come away from the wall here. In the other direction, the head will go down the wall. So now my head rotates back, the rib cage rotates forwards, and the pelvis rotates back. And then I come up again. So pressure-wise, the pressure is now towards the top of my skull, bottom of my rib cage, top of the pelvis. And now I've eliminated any window of space in my low back, but I have a lot of space up high between the skull and the ribs. So those are the 2 ends of the spectrum. So as we go through them forwards and backwards, I'm going to then shout in a few more watch points for you. So we slide the head up, the ribs come to meet, the neck opens, pelvis draws down, and we can lead this from the bony points of the pelvis here. So I've got lots of space here, but I'm more closed up here near the head. If I then rotate my arms backwards and outwards here, it will just give me a bit more lift. And I should feel my pressure coming in towards the big toe. I then come back, find my midpoint, come in the other direction, and again, I've now got flat, but lots of space up high. I'm then going to rotate my arms in. This widens the shoulder blades and encourages more of a drop of the rib cage. My legs are now rotated out and the weight is towards the outer portion of the foot. Once you get used to practicing these, you can then oscillate backwards and forwards. This does want to be a whole body movement. So you want to feel the feet go from outer to inner, the legs rotating out, the legs rotating in. You might want to exhale as you tuck, inhale as you lift. So that is your sagittal plane CoG against the wall.